Good morning, everybody. Well, it's morning here in Spain, it's morning in Italy with Olga, and we're back for another session in the TEFL Development Hub. Um, First of all, if you didn't catch Olga's last session on pronunciation activities, do go back and check it out. I'll share another link to that because it was full of practical ideas for the classroom. And she's back today with another fantastically practical session, again, looking at business English, but this time with some ChatGPT thrown in. So thank you very much, Olga, for joining us again.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. Really, I've already told you that this is a pure delight for me to participate in your organized by your webinars. They're just, it's great, amazing, really, to have this connection with other peers, right? So it's really amazing, nice. So without further ado, I'll just give you some context regarding me. I've been teaching online since 2020. It's kind of a full-time job at the moment, and nothing really much has changed. I'm still teaching online. I mostly do one-to-ones, and I mostly work with, not mostly, but yeah, all of my students are adults. We're talking about people age 25, 56, and they are mainly focusing on English for specific purposes or business English. So to make story short, they are very much into workplace communication. And today I would like to present a few ChatGPT generated activities for these one-to-ones that are online, and for people who are, let's say, kind of stuck, who may feel a little bit stuck with their lesson routine. And I'll be showing you some activities that might also be presented offline, and not only for adults, and not only in business English context. So without further ado, let me just present you the topic and just share my screen. And hopefully I'm using an AI tool which is called Tomi, and this is for presentations. Teresa, have you ever used this one? Have you tried it out?
I haven't used that one. I used another presentation generation tool, and I was blown away by what it can produce in a short amount of time. It's definitely by no means perfect. You need to do a lot of workarounds once you've got the basic structure. But in terms of, providing you with some outlines, they're really good. It's amazing what AI can do nowadays.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this is my first try. I was just, looking for a perfect presentation tool that would not seem to be a PPT only. And this is kind of my first try in a way. Hopefully it's going to work well. I call it ChatGPT generated activities. Maybe you're wondering, why is it to beat the blues? Well, I was thinking that since February is kind of an interesting period in the nature, and that we have spring just around the corner, but it's still not spring. A lot of people are prone to this, it's called, I think, seasonal depression. Right? Teresa, do you have any sweet mood swings regarding weather, regarding the
I mean, I'm
seasonal thing?
I'm quite lucky because living in the south of Spain, we get about 300 days of blue skies
Yeah.
through the year. I think it would be very different if I was living in the UK at the moment.
You don't have to beat the blues, but you have to embrace the blue sky, right? In a way. Well, strangely it may seem, Italian climate is also very favorable with lots of sunny days and everything. But it's, today it has been quite gloomy, so probably it's just the fact that, we're still in February, and it's still February time. And I do suffer from seasonal depression, but in a kind of a reversed way, because I kind of feel like I'm missing the times when it's winter. Winter gives me this sensation of, kind of an ability to slow down, to maybe have more activities on your list, and also I don't know, maybe kind of, if we talk about the way how you think about it, or you see the time, you might just think that, like everything slows down. Me too. I'm also slowing down so I can have a little bit more time because, in summer, everything seems to be going way faster than normal. So, yeah, I actually have a question for you, and now we're going to talk about what you might, maybe it's more related to observation. So, Teresa, are you teaching any one-to-ones currently?
No, I'm not. I'm observing a lot of classes, but they tend to be groups or small groups. I've not observed any one-to-ones.
One-to-ones, right? So that might be quite an interesting thing to tap into. I don't know how many of you, but maybe that's going to be a reflection minute here. How many of you think that about the time, about this sort of a backstage? So the time when maybe 2 or 3 minutes before, the student switches on the camera, logs in, log into the Zoom, and is in front of you, right? So my question is, what do you think your student is in the mood for? What's the mood of your student? How he might be feeling? And I've been asking myself this question because when I see my student screen, there are many students who are doing English on the go. There are many students who are not in their office, not in their homes, not, sitting at their desk with a pencil, pen, and and a copybook or everything. I even happened to have a few cases when my students were driving and when my students were at the hairdresser salon or maybe waiting waiting for the medical checkup at the hospital. And me personally, I'm of that opinion that it's still a positive trend. It's still a positive thing. Why? Because my student decided not to cancel the class, not to abandon me, saying like, look, I have other commitments to do. But they kind of trying to find that little slot, that little time where they can, if not dedicate their time to English, well, at least try to find this a kind of a compromise. So this is my everyday context. I have many one-to-one students who are not just like me sitting in front of the computer and all well prepared. And what happens is that before they are online, they're on their Zoom, there's always something going on, right? Maybe there was a business meeting. Maybe he just hopped from on this meeting before another meeting, or maybe there was I don't know, some sort of an argument with a colleague, or maybe an urgent call, or maybe call after call. So there are many different scenarios that happen just before the class, or maybe even during the class, right? We as teachers, we have to sort of deal with that. I think it's very important to explain how the online class works, but I have a feeling that sometimes circumstances are just, they're getting in more power than we can control, right? So there are some circumstances that you can't control. They just happen because they happen. So, and for me, it was interesting to, dig deeper into that and understand what is the actual emotional background, what is the actual emotional condition, the state of mind that my student gets having his English class. And, when you think about well-being, you actually ask yourself the question, but what is a well-being? What is this positivity that, once you start working with the language school, the first thing that they kind of preach on teachers that be positive, be friendly, start your class with a smile. And you do all that not only because this is some kind of company's policy, but also because this is humane to do that, right? You want to feel that this is not a class, but this is this bond that is not offline. You're able to develop that online. So I was just trying to understand what the well-being is. And I've come up with this, not I've come up, but I've looked up this really amazing framework, or maybe in a way, I'd rather call it a kind of, I don't know what to call it actually. I had the word, but I don't remember it anymore. Anyway, it's PERMA. So this is a kind of an idea of what, and it's on Psychology Today website. You can, go and check there. It actually illustrates what kind of components, what kind of elements are meant by or can construct this sense of well-being. And here we actually see everything that we might also experience and have in our class. I mean, if we think about a session, is that important to be positive, to emanate positivity and kind of, give some energy to our student? Yes. I would say yes, this is important. And it doesn't matter if this is a business person who is just, overwhelmed with his tasks, or this is a teenager who just had his mathematics class and now he has to do his English homework online. It could be any person. We want to emanate this positivity and we want to be as friendly as possible, right? Engagement, it's very important to engage a student into this journey and discovery of the language, right? So usually we do warmers to prepare our student for maybe for the core activity, for activation, or maybe before we just load him with some grammar bits here and there, right? So engagement is important. Relationships, the way how you establish your relationship through the screen, I've been told by my students, are not very different from the ones that they have to establish offline. And usually the comments were something like, well, I definitely see your body language. I hear your voice. I hear its impact. So for me, whether we have a screen or we don't have a screen, it doesn't matter. And I think maybe this is how the relationships, this is where you can feel this touch of relationship, that the bonds are building up little by little. And with each class, with each session, there is a chance that the relationship will get closer and closer because we are in their team. We want to help our student, right, on their journey. Every session should be meaningful, and this is where our lesson plan comes in handy, right? Because we really want to understand the needs first, and then create these materials that would help our student to see what their message could be, what their discourse could be. And that's what makes our classes meaningful. And of course, every lesson and every course, it should have its outcomes and takeaways and achievements. And sometimes achievements might be kind of maybe misinterpreted because the students get really, really frustrated if after the course of 40 hours, their B2 for some reason has not become C1. And this is where the valuation, or maybe in a kind of, the time when they cannot appreciate their own baby steps, it's the time where it can be a very tricky point and a very tricky thing. So again, in our classes, every class, you want to say something about the achievement of the student. You want to highlight that. You want to emphasize that and say, look, this is what you have achieved today, right? This is our rationale in the class and everything. So, Teresa, does it look like it could be applicable also for offline classes, or is that something that we observe in offline?
No, I think definitely. I mean, all of the things that you were talking about apply equally to online and offline. I think when we moved online, there was a lot of concern about how we could continue to build those relationships. A lot of people were saying it's much more difficult to build rapport online. It's not. It's just done in a slightly different way, I think. But yeah, definitely applicable online, offline, small groups, one-to-one, large groups, everything.
Right. Is there anything that you would maybe add as an element for well-being? I mean, maybe in general, not only for teacher-students relationship.
I don't think so. When you were talking about achievement, I read an interesting article the other day about motivation and achievement. And, we often think that kind of motivation leads to achievement. But the article was saying actually the reverse is true, that when students achieve something, then they're much more motivated to
Oh,
do
absolutely.
more. So yeah.
Right. Absolutely, absolutely. So I decided to, maybe work a little bit more and see what it's gonna, what gonna be my outcomes, on to see if it's just not only positivity that actually has an impact on our classes. So I can imagine lots of situations when my student, even answering the question, "Hi, how are you doing?" Even saying, "I'm fine, thanks," might not be the answer that he wants to produce first. And, there can be something which is backstage again. So I'm thinking of this backstage situation. What's the emotional state of mind that I have to deal with? Because probably it will also depend on what kind of activities I'm going to offer to my student. Because we know that fatigue, frustration, anxiety, this sensation when you are all over the place can be very overwhelming. And if my business people, they don't often have time for homework, and this is the session that I have, this is the only 60 seconds that I have with them, I have to use it. I definitely have to use it very well. I definitely have to think of every single part of the class so that they could benefit from that. And so I think understanding what kind of emotional background, what kind of emotions are in the air, what's the air, could definitely help to understand what kind of activities may work or may not work with certain people. I have a brilliant case of a person. He's in his 50s. He has quite a good level of B2, so quite a good level of English, and he's an upper intermediate. And he's about to take this very important military exam. So it's exam in the military English. That basically it's kind of a very important exam for him, because technically his destiny in the hands of this exam, because if he takes this exam and passes it with flying colors, he might just get a job abroad, he might be posted abroad, and this is the goal. So working with him, the language was not the first issue that I had to deal with. What I had to deal with it was his anxiety. His voice trembles, his hands shiver, he has this emptiness in his eyes. It's very difficult to concentrate. He's translating back and forth from Italian into English and back and forth, and it was really difficult to maybe tap into the new vocabulary and learn something new, because his exam requires some really military related lexies. So for some reason, we still had to work on his vocabulary, and that was absolutely impossible, because the person, from the very beginning, even if he was smiling and I was friendly, for some reason didn't have, it wasn't helping very much. The smile was not enough. It wasn't the case. So I was kind of, the other day, I was just, looking up for some articles on Google, and I've come up with this idea that, okay, maybe it's a good idea to explore anxiety and positivity influence on our fluency, on our speaking skills, and our communication skills. Because, when you have a student who doesn't like anything, so he can take this exam, he can do it. It's absolutely his exam, and he's absolutely a fit. He's a perfect fit, but he can't. I actually have to mention that this person has failed this exam 3 times. Just because of his nerves, as we say, right? Just because he was too nervous, and there was not well, obviously was not something that examiners appreciate. So he couldn't show his English true colors in the way. It was difficult. So, and I want to share with you just a few things that I personally share with the author of this article, and that I found, maybe on the one hand, very obvious and very simple to understand, but on the other hand, maybe something that we, in a way, we ignore. We don't see it. We don't we don't have this aha effect. So here's what I found. You may find this article online. This is absolutely accessible. So just a few things that I found absolutely interesting and very applicable to the situation, to the students that I'm working with. So first, we have to remember, and we probably, most of us intuitively know, that emotion and cognition are inseparable. That's why we have this positivity effect, this positive psychology, that you can do more, you can show more, you can perform more and better if if your studies are, absolutely, if your studying experience is absolutely positive. And we as teachers, facilitators, educators, coaches, we have to bring this. We have to maybe kind of showcase that, and that would be important, right? There was a quite nice definition of what anxiety is, because if you think about a person who stutters when he speaks, who shivers, who trembles, and everything. What is anxiety exactly? Is that just being nervous? Is that some sort of stress? Is that some what is it exactly, right? And here was an interesting definition from the point of view of also ESL, of learning a language, right? Of anxiety, which is not pretty much not the same anxiety as you may feel when you speak your mother tongue. So, and it goes, it defines as the worry and negative emotional reaction aroused when learning or using a second language. So this is a reaction that is naturally aroused when the person has to speak. And of course, depending on the background knowledge, on the grammar command, on lexical range of our student, we might observe absolutely different approach of a student who speaks, who has to develop a monologue or a dialogue, who has to, create this communication. And something that something that had a wow effect on me, something like, whoa, what? I was absolutely startled with the fact that anxiety and enjoyment can be occurring emotions, right? And this is actually something that you can definitely observe in the class, because, right, you give a topic on, talk about your job, and the person gets very, stiff. You ask him, please, would you please talk about your favorite book? And it gets easier. Now, talk about your family, and it's getting easier. Talk about your favorite activity, and it's, whoa, right? The person may not have this accuracy command, but he's going to be super fluent from this point of view, right? So that was an interesting thing, that we can actually maybe try to find the way how to shift this anxiety into enjoyment, right? Because they're co-occurring, they happen at the same time. And successful language learners must embrace joy as well as pain. I think this is a more understandable idea, just because we have no pain, no gain, right? I always have to tell my students to make an extra effort, to run an extra mile. Most of my students do marathons. So I say, look, please, yes, I know that you've done everything for this class. There was this commitment. I can feel it, but please try to run an extra mile. Because yes, without this pain, without this suffering, this frustration, this point when you find yourself deep in the bottom, probably you can't really elevate your skills and your abilities and grow, right? Teresa, what are your thoughts on this?
I was just thinking about the anxiety issue, and
Uh-huh.
obviously you work a lot with one-to-one students. So the fact that they're feeling anxiety in their lessons with you, that that's a very different anxiety, I think, to when you're in a group class
Mm-hmm.
and you're absolutely fine doing the activity with your partner, but then when you have to speak in front of the whole class,
Yeah,
it's a bit more nerve-wracking.
absolutely.
So maybe there's kind of more underlying anxiety when it's happening in that one-to-one situation, that even though they're in this safe environment, it's only you, they're just talking to you, nobody else is listening, and yet they still feel so overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
by the use of the second language. It's really interesting.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And this actually was a kind of a starting point of my, this kind of discovery of the emotional spectrum during the classes, because, all of these people work and all of these people have families. And anxiety is not the only feeling that I can sense, if I may say so, from the screen that is transmitted. And I just decided to explore other emotions, and I'm gonna show you some actually activities that uh, will probably showcase this different spectrum of emotions that we may face as teachers, or we may hear, or we may sense, or we may see, right? Some of these emotions are not very obvious, but again, I decided to use artificial intelligence, well, ChatGPT activities, because I've been working for around a year or so, producing lots of different, playing it here and there, playing it around. And I've noticed that ChatGPT was actually providing me with a lot of useful professional workplace language. And I know that because I was asking, I was always getting back to my students saying, like, look, is this relevant? Look, is this something that you may say or may do or may perform in your meeting, in your negotiations, etc., etc. Because we know that ChatGPT, yes, there are some inconsistencies and discrepancies, etc., etc. But we're talking about workplace language, just work situations, and then the relevance. And a lot of students, if not everybody, said yes. Where did you get it from? How do you know? And for me, when the question is, how do you know about that? Is the thing like, oh, I've dropped that, right? I'm like, oh, great. It feels like I was there, I was present, but I wasn't. And this is what I've been trying to find. All of my courses are tailor-made. We're not using any particular textbooks. Although for course design, I do have this strong backup on, books like Business Result and Outcomes, and there are different series, fantastic series. But when it comes to this communication, when it comes to speech production, right, or production skills, sometimes you might find lots of role plays, lots of simulations, lots of speaking tasks that are not so relevant, right? And I was just thinking, I want to I want to bring something more in this, in this working environment, in this 40 hours, within this 30-hour span. And yeah, and ChatGPT, since, it was pretty quick in the terms of quick and answers, so it was pretty much quick search, helped me to consume a lot of, I mean, not consume, but save a lot of time. And I was, what is more, I was on the topic, and that was absolutely important to be, spot on in fact. So this is something that I would like to share with you. I would be extremely happy if, if someone is going to plan to use that in the class, and maybe, play it around, maybe change this activity and try it in the group. That would be amazing if you, get back to me and say what worked, what didn't work. I don't get the privilege of being observed, unfortunately. Everybody's so busy. And so on this way of figuring out what is good for my students, I'm very lonely. I gotta admit that I'm quite lonely. So, giving some sort of, comparing notes with someone and getting the second opinion is very much welcome. Also, if you feel like, oh, look, this activity did not work with my student, it wasn't good, it was partly good, it still works, right? I would be happy to hear from you with any feedback. There are activities. Now, without further ado, we're getting into the meat, as I call it. The first activity, and I gotta give you maybe a sort of a student's profile, because everything is more understood when you are in the context. Maybe this is the same context that we share. I wouldn't, I would admit that this is possible. So we have this young lady. She's a human resources manager as well as a recruiter in an IT company, and she has an A2 level. So this is quite a good A2 level, and so I'm just gonna show you. I called it, and this is something that I've been observing throughout some time. So it's not just one class impression. An overwhelmed with tasks recruiter. So you can already imagine that she's all over the place. She's always thinking about work. Her phone is always ringing. Her original request was vocabulary related to human resources and to recruiting. I think this is also important to mention that some of her pain points is that she could get carried away very easily. And I'm saying, this is like an example would be, oh, hello, Alona, how are you? And she goes on and on and on about what's going on in her life. And this is still relevant to the class because first I explain how to talk about planned activities, how to express doubt, how to express some confidence, how to express clarity. We talk about this language. So technically, for the next 25 minutes, Alona gives me quite a good outline of her day or something. So she has this very long monologue, and it's about her, and it's about this practicing of accuracy. But her fluency does prevail over her accuracy. So technically, I could call it a, maybe a sort of a dog me class, because everything that she's saying is relevant. I can ask her questions that are relevant, but still, right? When is the learning moment, right? And for some reason, I said, okay, after a couple of classes where we would just talk about how she's doing, I just thought, okay, I have to bring some language. I have to teach her something, for God's sake. And I come up with this idea, since the recruiters, they often have to compose the emails for the future candidates. So they go with with correspondence. They're looking at the profiles on LinkedIn, etc., etc. So I thought, why not to make it a little bit reversed, and why not to send an email to Alona? I mean, how many emails can she get in English that would not be related to work, that would not be related to, have you prepared a report? This is the due date. This is the deadline. This is this, and that, right? So I thought, why don't I create an email with ChatGPT, or kind of a note, or you can make it a note if it's short. You can make it an email if you will, if you want, from a secret admirer. Because my Alona is so professional, so qualified, so fun, so amazing, so bubbly. Why not, doing something nice for her? So I just created a prompt where I would say, please create an email for a recruiter for IT company, from a secret admirer or from a big fan, who compliments on Alyona's great skills, fantastic qualifications, and amazing English. This was also important. So to, compliment on her English as well. And of course, since ChatGPT is so positive, we know that it generates very positive prompts. This is what, it created some sort of an email. And me, I just, I edited it a little bit because, sometimes, of course, I put in the prompt that this is an A2 level. But I think ChatGPT thinks that we're all ambitious, that we know more than we do for A2 level. And it created some, sophisticated words and a little bit more sophisticated structures. So I kind of edited that. And this is what we got. Okay, this is our collaborative activity with ChatGPT. Now, when my student saw the first thing, dear Alyona, she was telling me, it's you. You send me this email. I was like, I don't know. I just got it from someone, and this big fan just asked me to send you this email. Then she goes through the reading, so she reads it through, and I've never seen a more concentrated person on reading. You know that adults are not very much into reading, especially if they're at the hairdressers and reading from the screen. It's not easy. And she has been reading, she has been hearing every single word, which is amazing, right? The concentration is here, the presence is here. And we read this email twice because she was reading that to herself first, and then she was reading that to me. And you can already hear the different tone of her voice, right? Because there is some compliments, there is the word adorable, there is, all these things. Then we looked into some, this adjective plus noun, word combinations, collocations, set phrases, right? Were just chunks in general. Exceptional work, couldn't resist, in the field of, caught my attention, perfect fit. And she could, she wasn't very sure, it wasn't in her active vocabulary, but she could understand the gist. And that was the first step, right, to learn this vocabulary. She was exposed to it. Suitable opportunities, let you know, in person, remarkable work, captured admiration, blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. And then it was actually the first class that I wanted to expose her to, so I wanted to introduce present perfect continuous. And this is also something that I put on my prompt. So I said, please generate some present perfect and present perfect continuous to put on this letter. And what do we see? The first line goes, I have been observing your exceptional work, right? As opposed to has really caught my attention. And that was for the follow-up. So the follow-up of this class was to, bring it and continue talking about this present perfect continuous grammar with an example like, oh, do you remember? We had this from your big fan. I have been observing. So there was some time going on. So it kind of provided me context for further discussion of this tense, because this is a pretty important tense for her, right? She has to ask the candidate questions like, how long have you been working? How long have you been planning, etc., etc. It's an important tense. Especially for Russian-speaking students, it's a problem because this tense does not exist. We don't have it, right? What could you do after this email? Well, there are actually several scenarios, because I also asked Alyona if she could, write her letter to a potential candidate. So we had a few candidates that she wanted to contact on LinkedIn. And, of course, this letter looks very complimentary, and it's not, it's not so formal and official as it should be for the potential candidate. So we would maybe discuss what could be different in her email. Is there any possible language or any bits that we could extract from this email, like sincerely, for example, maybe, again, we have been contacting you for, etc., or your profile has really caught my attention, because there are some expressions that you can steal work with. And for me, it was also important to recycle some of the vocabulary that she tends to forget. Qualifications, she forgets this word. Skills, she can't remember. Perfect fit, problem. Opportunities we confuse with possibilities. So here you can, I think this is a nice piece where you can have both lexical and grammar, takeaways. Teresa, what would you do as a follow-up for this?
Yeah, I mean, I love that idea of providing students with a text, and then getting them to make it more relevant to their situation. I think it's something that we don't do enough of. Course books are always filled with sample texts and the final product, which isn't always relevant. But like you say, there's so much good vocabulary and so many good structures that you can mine from a text. So I definitely do that. What else would I do? I would maybe you could take it to the kind of their first meeting. She could invent a dialogue
Exactly.
meeting her secret admirer in person and the sort of questions that she might ask, although that's kind of moving away a bit from the business setting.
Right, but still, it's somewhat about, since I was telling you the profile, it said in the profile that she is overwhelmed, right? So she constantly thinks about work. And I needed to, drag into a different reality in a way. Right? So, and I think I killed two birds with one stone, because she was concentrated on the reading. She was thinking about her work, but from a different angle, and she was constantly guessing, who is it? Who is this person? So it was definitely a hook activity, because you can't imagine. I mean, probably I didn't expect that she would, who is that? Is that my boss? Is that colleague? She was guessing from real people. So it didn't actually came to her mind that it could be ChatGPT. And when she read it, she said, "No, it's not you." I don't think so, right? Maybe because also knowing me as my personality, after our conversations and talks. So that was a big hook, and I think it was great that her attention was there. She was present, and we managed to actually, she was again a little bit carried away. It's like, oh, what's going on? Oh, but it's very nice. It's a very nice feeling when the lesson is over and like, I'm gonna go and just you feel this inspiration a little bit, like the person is slightly elevated, and that what makes you feel elevated as well, because we're not the only ones who should be producing positivity here, I believe, right? It's nice when you can share this emotion and happiness. We know that happiness, positivity is quite contagious. This is a big thing to remember, and to maybe continue developing in the classes. All right, moving on. The next case is, wow, very particular, because this is a lady she lives in Italy. She has been living in Italy for a very long time, but she's Chinese. And she runs a restaurant. This is home, kind of family business. And she, that I believe that somewhat. Have you ever had any Chinese students, Teresa?
I've never taught them, but I've observed some lessons with Chinese students.
What's your impression of their, kind of like emotional state? Do they feel engaged? Are they enthusiastic? Are they open? How would you
I
describe
mean, from what I've seen, they've tended to be more reserved. I
it?
think that
Uh-huh.
comes from their own educational background.
Yes.
And there's definitely not reticence to get involved, but there's a certain kind of hierarchy in terms of who
Mm.
speaks when,
Mm.
and how you respond to people, and the relationship with the other people that you have in the class with you
That's
has a
it.
big impact on the interactions.
Exactly. Well, my lady is extremely a very powerful lady, because she runs her own business. She has two kids, and she has to switch from her Italian identity to Chinese identity all the time. Her request was just a general English, And I just thought, okay, I don't buy it. I'm sorry. General English, what is that? And after a couple of lessons, we actually found this need for her. And that was vocabulary related to restaurant and catering. So she was liking this vocabulary. I should also say that Chinese were, in my experience, and I had just a couple of Chinese students, I definitely, the key word to understand what kind of person is coming to your class, self-critical, self-judgmental. I haven't done well. I haven't performed well. I have to work more. I have to have more homework. As you said, is based on educational background as well. So my lady's super self-critical, very critical, very like everything I do is just nothingness. And besides, you know, she has some of her staff members are from the Philippines and they have a very good command of English just because they have some international experience. She doesn't. And of course, since they are of the same age, this is a very young team. They're all in their 20s and their 30s. And of course, once in a while, they would mock on her English. And of course, it puts an extra pressure on you, right? Extra pressure is there. You don't feel, you feel stiff. You get stiff, even if you do well. So again, I had to deal with a very stressed out, self-critical lady. And well, when we talked a little bit about her personal preferences, what she likes to do, what is that she likes about her restaurant, she mentions that she actually likes to be in the kitchen. She actually likes to be at the bar stand, serve people, help people, and see their happy faces, right? So I thought, why not producing some sort of an interesting context for her that would be of an A2 level. So again, we have I would even call a false beginner rather, because she started learning English a long time ago. But she said, no, I forgot everything, of course, self-critical. So I just created this with ChatGPT. I just created this recipe of a cocktail. Of course, I called it Shujian, the name of my student. And when I presented that, the only question she asked me was like, does it actually exist? Oh, yes, sure. It does exist, of course. This recipe is based on the food that she was describing to me that she loves. And it was something about berries and mint. We were talking about flavors and spices and everything. So I put it all together, put it into the prompt, and ChatGPT helped me with the original recipe. And here it goes.
See, this I think is really interesting. Because I've always heard that ChatGPT won't invent things.
Interesting.
So, I mean, I don't know whether you've looked into this. Is this actually a real cocktail that ChatGPT has kind of found? And no, it has actually created something. Wow.
Yes, because I gave the keywords. I said blackberries, please, mint leaves, go for it, ginger, this sort of things. And we were learning the use of present simple and instructions. I think it's one of the really nice ways of working, practicing, dealing with present simple, right? So these are the instructions that ChatGPT kindly provided me with. And here we actually see a lot of different verbs related to cocktail making. Great. I mean, you could tell me, look, but why don't you just take a recipe? I mean, there is very beautiful pictures on Pinterest. Amazing, right? Really beautiful, this cocktail, mocktail, and everything. But I just thought, no, I want to create something that would be Shujian, and ChatGPT kindly provided me with that. Again, fill, top it off, take, release, add. Here I have at least 7 items that are going to be new to my lady, but not in the sense of she can't imagine this activity. She knows it very well, how to do it, how to combine these things, how to create a cocktail. But it gives me this variety of things that she actually does with her cocktails, right? Yeah. So basically that's how it goes. Then the follow-up activity was to think of a mocktail, because a lot of her family members, they are teetotals. They don't drink. So we were thinking, oh, but you can also create a mocktail. And so she would say, oh, let's eliminate this elderflower, whatever liquor, right? So that's it. What else can you do? We created a dialogue. I was the first day worker at her restaurant. And, I asked, well, in the menu, we have this Shujin cocktail. How do you make it? And she would give me the instructions. And we would play it twice, because first she would have this as a cheat sheet. And then you have the blank screen, and you have to provide me with the language. That was stressful, but kind of like a challenge, a nice challenge. She liked it. She was like, okay, let's see how many verbs I can remember. And she almost remembered almost every single word from these instructions. Again, I have edited a little bit. There were too many things that were maybe, questionable. For A2 level, you don't want to use that. There was too much of language. So I kind of, cut and paste kind of a screenshot, working lexical and grammatically. Yeah. Or we also created a different talk where I was a client and I was asking her about the ingredients of this cocktail, mocktail. Or the opportunity of possibility of eliminating some of the ingredients, right? Then we played it as if I was intolerant to elderflower liquor. I had a terrible rash. I had a terrible allergy. So that was a kind of a situation where you could make a complaint. That's it. So there was dealing with complaints. Not surprisingly, for me, because I already know Shujan, I know what she's talking about. I know what her business is about. This was a problem-solving situation. And even with a small vocabulary that, her vocabulary still, she confused Italian words with English. But, oh my God, she managed to solve this problem. Because she, as a solution, she offered the following. She said, why don't one of my staff members take you to the hospital? And the cocktail is on us, or something, right? I had to teach her that it's a cocktail is on us, a very easy phrase. But still, she was, making this effort. So her communicative production was perfect. She managed to solve the problem. After that, I said, look, what have you just done? You have solved the problem, right? And we for a couple of minutes, you can't change self-criticism in just one session of English, probably not, unfortunately. But, she already felt a little bit more at ease with herself. That was important, that she felt better. Teresa, what are your thoughts? What would you do?
I think it's a great activity. I think as well there's so much that you could do in terms of, again, mining that vocabulary and then also expanding it. So for example, talking about putting it in a highball glass, or what other cocktail glasses are there that you might
Exactly.
use in your restaurant, and what
Right.
other ingredients, what other spirits might you be using? So yeah, great way to kind of expand from the starting point.
And guess what? Since she's working in at the restaurant, and since she's doing her class, she does her classes from the restaurant. She could actually, with her camera, show me all her glasses. So I find sometimes it is distracting because there is noise. Well, there are many things that kind of like get you distracted. There are people who are asking her some questions. Restaurant, right? But when you do not consider it to be a threat, but rather an opportunity, it kind of gives you this extra mile to run, and maybe create something like that. Because probably if the circumstances are more favorable, maybe I'm not able to create this. Maybe
Mhm.
I don't think of something like that, right? So yeah.
I think that's so
Okay.
true as well, what you were saying about seeing things as an opportunity, because I think certainly like during the pandemic, we were dealing with students who were in very different situations. You know, not everybody had their quiet room with their laptop, with perfect camera and things like that.
Yeah.
And at the time, we kind of dealt with it because we were just thrown into that situation. And perhaps moving past the pandemic, we expected everyone to be at their desk with their laptop, you know,
Yeah.
not coming in on a mobile phone. But actually, so many people do, and they want to. They come because they want to. So it's just about us as teachers adapting our lessons to the
Right.
best way to suit their devices and their needs,
Right.
I think.
You know, the other day, when we had this kind of a little event uh, of BC, you know, this little chit chat regarding, you know, also online classes, there was this idea that, you know, some people argued that what if, you know, by accepting the fact that, you know, students do their classes in the car with a small baby walking out, walking their dog or something, wouldn't that devalue our hard work? Wouldn't that it create a kind of, you know, like English, you know, not a priority? So this is kind of maybe a flip side of it. This is some sort of the thing that, yeah, we also have to consider. But I don't know, for me, if we just, you know, pragmatically speaking, if I want to have these clients, if I want to retain with these people, I kind of have to adapt in a way. Even though sometimes it might, you know, they you know, they might think, oh, this lesson is so effortless. You know, I don't need a notebook. So maybe, you know, it kind of makes you reflect on, oh, okay, maybe I have prepared well. But at the same time, it didn't take me a very long time to prepare this. And that was useful. It was there, right? And I didn't have to worry if my student has a textbook, if he's able to see my screen with you know, with the screenshots from the book, etc., etc. Right? So it kind of gave me also some sort of a freedom, because this we can go it on the go. We can go it. We can do it, no problem. Right? Okay, the showcasing number 3. Right. I don't know how many of you have tried the courses English for IT specialists. I think a very particular, should I be saying type of people? I don't know, the category, the professional category, because we still have some kind of maybe our personalities match our professions, or maybe the profession imposes something on our personality. So this time we have to deal with B2 level. So this is upper intermediate. The person has been learning English for years, and his main request, so he's a DevOps person, DevOps manager. I was like, whoa, I have no idea what it is. Let's ChatGPT it, right, to get to know what kind of roles the person is performing. And of course, I'm also asking him about his roles and duties and responsibilities. His request was to have more comfortable, lighter, small talks with colleagues. You know that usually it's kind of a global team. You have to deal with a soft engineer from India and an IT technician from Austria, and so on and so forth, right? His pain point is low energy. Whatever I do, this is low energy, always low energy. You know, this kind of a face that we call poker face, scarce interest. And every class would be wrapped up with the phrase, I have very few reasons to have a small talk with my colleagues. But still, we have to improve that, remember. So, you know, I found myself in a very difficult situation, because at some point I thought, what's the value of my classes? What's the sense? You know, at this point, I got myself frustrated, right? I got anxious, not only my DevOps. And yeah, so I just asked ChatGPT if he could kindly provide me with some small talk that is possible to create between DevOps, because, you know, this is an intermediate, a mediator sort of between a management and IT specialist, like software engineering, right? So he's a kind of a mediator between, he's a manager, but still he's an IT. So this is a complicated role. And he has to manage actually different, people of different walks of life, of IT in this case, right? So this is what ChatGPT created. I don't even think that I really edited that, because I told him short, small talks for DevOps, software engineer, and IT technician. We were discussing who he is, who he was working with closely, and he named this software engineer and IT technician. So that's why I thought, okay, let's have this a 3-person conversation, 3-person small talk. And I really enjoyed how ChatGPT switched from the work-related to something not work-related topic. And that was a very nice, smooth thing, right? And all these expressions like swarmed up with support tickets, it's his language. He was teaching me. So I was asking him, what is support ticket? I only know a ticket from Ferrara to Barcelona. And he was explaining to me this, right? And this reaction, not just, okay, but sounds intense, sounds complicated, right? So there's tons of things that could be either ignored, just taking into consideration the gist. Did you understand that? Or you could get into this nuts and bolts of this, well, back to the grind, catch up on some shows, etc., etc. I asked him, my first question was, do you think this conversation could happen in your company? Honestly, I expected that that it looks a little bit, of too much, a little bit too fancy. In fact, he said, yes, I remember somebody said back to the grind. It's like, whoa, for me, it was like winning a lottery, because in which textbook will I find this back to the grind? I'm sorry, right? But I have to say that. Where am I going to find this? And with that, I'm like, ooh, support tickets. Okay. So I can also benefit from this, because I start understanding the industry, the language industry, right? It's not a problem or an issue that they have in IT. They have an incident, very particular, right? So, and then again, how is everyone doing? It's a little bit Americanized, and the request was an American, sort of American English, because the stakeholders are American. Well, back to the grind, catch up with shows. What did I do after? I eliminated the answers and I left the questions. How are you doing? Any plans for the weekend? Are you dealing with support tickets? Are you catching up on your shows? And we would drill this. Then he would ask me the same questions. I mean, not pretty much the same, but this one, how are you doing? And what are your plans for the weekend? And maybe if I was catching up on some shows, right? So that was pretty important. And it was very funny, because I was asking him questions. And then when I said, now you ask me questions, we remember that he's anxious and low energy. He said, I don't know what question to ask you. I don't have any questions. And I said, okay, remember the questions that I've asked you? Now, back that to me. Now you ask me those questions. Oh, wow. Memory loss, right? It wasn't the question of the language. It wasn't the question of, I don't know the vocabulary, that's why I'm not answering you. It was this, just the memory fact. And of course, he felt a little bit more motivated, because it was like, what, I cannot remember any questions that she asked me? Challenge accepted, right? Because this is how we are, maybe how we're functioning, right? You want to face some sort of a challenge, and okay, I want to make my memory work and remember those questions. So that was useful. Yeah. What would you do with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ideas that you've shared of then turning it into a real conversation is really useful. Um, yeah, I wonder whether as well you could think about the different people that you might have conversations with, and how that might change the
Uh-huh.
conversation. So, for example, if you're talking to a manager, depending on your relationship with your manager, you might not kind of say back to the grind. You might
Exactly.
find a different way of, oh, well,
Absolutely.
I best get back to work now, or, changing
Exactly.
the tone a little.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking about. So we would, maybe change that, paraphrase it into a more formal thing. My student didn't have to talk to any managers or any top management people. It was mostly this, because even with the manager, he would come up with something like, "Well, thank you. I'll see you soon. I have to go back to work." He's absolutely capable of it, but he's not capable of speaking like something like back to the grind. He was actually asking me like, why is it back to the grind? Back, what is the grind? So we also kind of, maybe explored a little bit the etymology of this. That was fun, but it's just how the person works, like informal conversations were actually the issue, not the formal ones. We're like, oh, when my peers, have a conversation in the chat, I don't understand the word. Why? Because it was back to the grind, right? Back, okay, right? So that was quite an interesting experience. So, and again, I wouldn't say that I have changed something in his low energy. I still think that the person has the low energy to share with, but were there some points when he was like, wait a second, yes, that was my intent. I really wanted to challenge him a little bit, and that he felt that challenge, because the challenge is this extra mile to run. Now, one of the most pleasant cases, the next one is super pleasant, because I got this guy, he's 25 years, reflects a lot on what is going on, and he works for a family business. So he does, I think, he works with as an accountant, I think, or something, and he's also a semi-professional football player. And at some point, I believe that he started suffering from imposter syndrome, since, he was like, oh, am I doing my job well? And then there is this pressure from the family that he has to run business, he has to do this, he has to do that. And surprisingly, he was feeling the same pressure from the coach. So that happened at the same moment. Pressure from the coach, pressure from the family. And I've never met any people who would, at 25 years old, were asking themselves a question, what have I actually accomplished? Right? And when we are preparing for a job interview, because he still wants to leave the nest, so to speak, and try himself in some other businesses, management, and in some other companies. And I asked him a question: what kind of role would you like? What kind of a position do you imagine yourself? Do you envisage? What do you want to do? And he said, I don't know, because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do anything. It's like, but that is obviously not true, you know. And he said, well, now I don't know how to play football. Now I don't know how to do business. So I thought that I might just, create an activity that would help him understand what the roles are and where he is, right? And I thought, well, why not imagine that the company, it's actually a football team, or a football team is actually a company, because this is unity. These are people that work together, and you care about success whether you do business or you play football or you do sports, right? You care about the achievements. So I generated an activity. I just call it In the Same League. And I just asked ChatGPT if he could provide me with the analog, like if you could compare company roles in the company and roles on the football pitch, on the football field. ChatGPT kindly provided me with this, and I just created a matching activity. That's it. I just had this little post-its separately, and I just said, okay, who do you think the owner, what would be the correlation? What would be the analog in football? And he would say, oh, head coach. Why? oh, because head coach has to do this, this, and that. One of his duties is blah, blah, blah. He's in charge of, he's responsible for. Lots of useful vocabulary was generated, right? Of course, there are some roles that are maybe questionable, but, again, that created some sort of a new discussion, right? Now, referees, what exactly are they doing on the field, right? What kind of judgment? Are there any standards? Is there any compliance going on? What's going on, right? That was pretty useful. And then I just asked him, so what kind of role? Where do you want to be? And so we kind of, we decided to dig into that and kind of explore what could be the role, what kind of duties and responsibilities he would like to take on in the next, when he's going to have his next job. So that was a little bit more of a reflections, but it was absolutely spot on, because the guy has this produces the language of reflection. So it was pretty useful. Yeah, and it happened on the B1 level.
That's such a creative idea. Like I'd never imagined comparing, a family business or a business and a football team. And I love
Yeah,
the home fans is the community.
exactly, right. And I've come up with this only just thinking that, there are so many idioms that we have in business English that originates from sports. So I thought sports and business, they're not so different, right? Because we also have fierce competition and achievements and everything like that. And then again, the guy, he doesn't have any, I put request nothing specific. There was nothing. It's just, I just want to have an English class once a week. That's it. Right. That's it. That's how it goes. Well, with this activity, I just thought like, I do want to teach him some football English. And I just, started to kind of getting into the lexis and seeing, and it was the time when I had quite a lot of lexical discoveries, like with a football pitch, that it's a pitch, right? For instance, and it was extremely interesting. It was like, wow, this is just another word. And this time and this time I was actually referring to the, this Oxford Express series, English for football players or something. They have this book, lovely, amazing, great, just, and I was both benefiting from ChatGPT generation thing and also from the book. So it's not like, okay, this activity does not really say I'm not using the books. Books are not important. No, everything is important. Everything's here. Now, the next case. Okay, this is a very interesting case because we have an endlessly disappointed with her progress life coach. So this is a life coach. She hit the plateau. She's a B2 level, B2 on her good days, B1 plus on her bad days, And, and the thing is that this is the lady, she has been retaining for 4 years. I have been her teacher for 4 years. She has been on and off for 4 years. So I think this is kind of obvious that, if you don't have consistency with studies, it's very difficult to track this achievements, this alley of success or something. Her request is, since she's a life coach and she works very much with, pretty much with metaphors. So her language should be very expressive, very intriguing, her performance should be eye-catching because she does lots of stuff on social media. She's just everywhere, right? Pain point, very little consistency in classes. And another point was that she is kind of pleasure dependent. This type of students who are like, I don't like this activity, right? And maybe sometimes you could just, because you have this school backup, you can say this is the school requirements, right? We have to use this platform. We have to use this. But sometimes you really want your students to enjoy. You don't want them to suffer, right? And sometimes it does sound a little bit arrogant, like, let's change the activity. But I'm trying not to see the threat. I'm just trying to see an opportunity because, I can't really do much with the threat. I can just say, okay, you don't like my teaching? thank you, bye-bye, I'll recommend another teacher, right? I mean, what am I supposed to do in that situation, right? I would just embrace the threat and maybe try to do something about it. So since this lady, she has been on and off, and every 3 months I get a message from her when she says, "Hi, Olga, I'm back on track. I really love, your English classes, so now we can continue." And that happens, so there is the break of 4 months. So every 4 months, so 4 months, then 4 months. So once in a while, she texts me to have just a couple of classes. So maybe it will be 5 or 6, no more than 10 classes usually. And then she's disappearing again because of her work. So I was thinking about metaphors. I was thinking about this comeback. I was thinking about what would be valuable for her at this level. And I thought, oh, why not to imagine that there is a person that, okay, that English, the English language, is a real person. And with Irina, they have they had a breakup. They were on a break. Okay, they're on a break. Now that Irina is back, she wants to rekindle, right? She wants to get back together. And why don't I write her a letter from English as a man, as a person, describing the whirlpool of their unsteady relationships and asking maybe for some commitment, asking for something. So with the help of ChatGPT and my editorial, let's say, ideas, we managed to create this. And this is like a real letter of the man who kind of appreciates that the woman is back in a way, right? A kind of a soap opera story. Your decision to get back to delightful. And when we were reading this, surely she was so happy because it was like, oh, wow, somebody asked, somebody created an email from, oh, somebody wrote it. Decision, and then we would go over and I would again single out some chunks and I would ask her personal questions like, what brings a smile to your son's face? So we would go like this, right? I've been reflecting, this is the grammar that she's kind of ignoring, but she knows it very well. So present perfect continuous, present past perfect continuous, all these complex tenses that are there. And then again, we have lots of vocabulary related to relationships. More than ever, set apart, gain much needed perspective and clarity, right? Made me realize. So it's all around want, understand, like, because in coaching, in her coaching diction, I hear that a lot. So she wants to talk about what she wants. She wants to talk about what she likes. And she wants to talk about what kind of mental processes are in her head. Because this is also important for her industry. Right? So yearning for, we don't want to say want, because now it's B2 level. Come on. The void, very poetic, the void in my life, right? Come to understand, realize in every possible way. So tones of different, very useful things. Again, I kind of edited that, but not so much this time. Maybe because my prompt was very specific. So I was like, for metaphors, full of present perfect continuous, language of the breakup and rekindling. And that's what it has generated. And of course, I asked her to reply to this email.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, that's one of the huge benefits of ChatGPT is just this generation of topic specific language. It's not always very good at being level specific.
Yeah.
But if you ask it to generate, give me 10 phrases that a counselor or a life coach might use, it tends to be good at that. And
that's
yeah,
what I've
maybe
noticed,
using it
yes.
as a starting point. Yeah.
And I mean, if there is this discrepancy level, well, I think this is where the teacher comes in handy, right? He says, oh, no, okay, now I will, make it perfect. So this kind of collaboration, not exclusion of of a teacher of ChatGPT, but kind of working out together is nice. It kind of gives you this final product looks very good, because my student was happy. She was, startled with the fact that someone, wrote her an email. It was this personal touch, and all these relationships here and there. And I hope that I kind of gave her an idea that this inconsistency in the language, it's like inconsistency in the relationships, and that you actually have to be more committed to learn from mistakes, right? And here he says, there is a request, please let me know your thoughts about rekindling our love, right? And she did homework. That was the first homework that she hadn't done for a very long time, in a long time, right? That's it. So, and it was nice, because again, I was, as they say in coaching, feeling her presence. She was there. She was concentrated. She was reading it, and she was trying not to use want, but yearn, and intend, and brighten up, and bring joy, etc., expressions. So that was pretty nice. Really good. Just very briefly, very quickly, what other ideas of activities I have tried. So I've tried this, creating lyrics in the style of Weekend, one of my students' favorite artists. This is so Weekend, and I did not include it here, but I could include, again, present perfect continuous, lyrics. Anna, I've got a song for you. I was like, oh, a song about me? What? Great. You know what? I'll print it out and put it in the frame. It's fantastic. Yeah. This Anna, she actually plays ukulele, and she actually thinks of creating a music for this one. I was like, oh, okay, great. Okay, where do I go? Just a sec. Another activity was oh, sorry. I've just closed everything. Oh, no. Okay, just a sec. Yeah, we're back on track. Yeah, another activity was writing a haiku poem. I have an A1 student, and again, here you don't really see A1 words, like laughter, not a very A1 word, but laugh. But it's very short, right? And it gives you, again, the idea of this adjective plus noun. This is an Italian speaking student, so it was very important to give her this pattern of putting adjectives before, adjectives that modify the noun, not vice versa. And yes, a message for Marco. Marco is a big fan of the Star Wars, so I created this message for him from Yoda, Yoda, and it was, oh, strong you are in the Force. And again, here we talked about the word order, right? Because in Italian, it's so different, it's so free. I think it's free word order they have, right? So we were paraphrasing this Yoda phrase into a normal, proper, right, English. And that was fun. It was really fun. The last one, this is one of my favorite activities and the most recent ones, is create a horoscope for 2024. So in my case, it was an esthetician. I knew for sure that she's Leo. And you cannot see it pretty much here, but ChatGPT gives you also some particular profession-related vocabulary. Right, something like your face is going to be brightened up with the joy, and there are going to be some breakouts of happiness, and things like that. So I actually sent also this to my boss. So just some wishes for horoscope wishes. So, and that again, ChatGPT is very, very, very positive about that. So you only get the good news, good stuff. And it actually works with many different students from different professions and of different emotional state of mind, let's say. So that was pretty good, and they were like, oh, thanks, I'll keep it. Right. So yeah, I think this is a wrap. This is so far I've experienced ChatGPT activities, and I really hope that these activities can maybe be a sort of like can give you an idea of what else you can develop based on this, because sometimes ideas can come naturally when you see something that works, and they're like, oh, okay, this is something that I can add. Because again, there is nobody who knows your students the way you know them.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's why you are able to even create something more. And with ChatGPT, it's definitely kind of gives you maybe a different perspective on different things, and it's a big helper. So I guess this is my idea that, even emotions is something that we share. They're all universal, but I don't think that artificial intelligence tools are so robotic. They don't have life in them. They can't
Mhm.
have life, and you're
Yeah.
the one who's going to amplify that. Yes, thank you so much.
Fantastic. I mean, one thing I would say is I know a lot of people are, or a lot of teachers are feeling worried about ChatGPT. And, you've said that there's obviously a lot of need for editing. But although ChatGPT can produce these things, your creativity in coming up with these prompts, write a song in the style of Weekend for Anna, or, this combination of the football team and the family, that's very much you creating these
Very
ideas.
much
So I think
so. Yeah,
definitely we're not out of the, we're not dead
out
yet.
of the
We
jobs.
we still have a role to play.
That's
We've had a question here from Maria. She says, are you using ChatGPT 3.5 or do you recommend the pay version?
okay. I haven't tried the paid version. That's what I'm gonna say. So it's definitely ChatGPT 3.5. Yes, the what is that called? The most simple one. Just the original one.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Awesome. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Olga, for coming along and sharing those ideas with us.
Sure.
Like you say, they're definitely things that you can take away and adapt to whichever context that you're working in. So yeah, hope everybody has fun trying out ChatGPT. Feel free to leave
Oh,
us a
that would be
message in the
wonderful. That would
comments.
be wonderful if someone left a message and just said, "Look, this idea is completely crazy, but you know because I do when you attend the conferences, it's where the sharing energy happening, and when you share, you just learn so much.
Mhm, mhm,
So I think, thank you for this opportunity to share, because I'm pretty sure that there are some teachers who might just be thinking which way I'm gonna go. Well, my student's always so depressed, or is there any activity that I could just maybe switch his attention from frustration to something else? And hopefully that's going to work, because emotions, if you we have seen that already, that emotions and cognitive processes, that just go hand in hand,
mhm.
and helping with emotions can help with the cognition as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you very much everyone who's been watching along. If you're watching on catch up and you've got any questions, feel free to tag me or Olga in the chat and we can get back to you. Olga, have a fantastic rest of the day and see you all again soon.
Thanks. See you around. Bye.